Appreciate the witnesses testifying today. As I mentioned in my remarks just a couple minutes ago here, Alaska, we're a resource-rich but infrastructure-poor state in terms of just everything: roads, bridges, ports, harbors, telecommunications. But that infrastructure poverty also extends to recycling infrastructure, particularly in our rural communities. So these Swiffer grants are good news. They're part of my and Senator Whitehouse's Save Our Seas 2.0 legislation, and the bipartisan infrastructure bill was already mentioned. One thing that I've heard about, and I'd like Ms. Beiser and Mr. Marshall, maybe you can take a crack at this, that the process in terms of funding has been very slow. And are there ways to streamline the EPA funding process to get these grants out faster, and then maybe even simplify it, right? One thing that you don't want to have happen, and you guys are very familiar with how to write grants and everything, but for a lot of communities, that's a big undertaking just in and of itself. And you don't want the groups that are kind of the professionals at grant writing to always get the grants. So streamlining, getting the resources out more quickly, and then helping communities that maybe aren't, so experienced in this. Those are broad questions, but I'd love your views on them.
Well, thank you, Senator Sullivan. And I know Alaska has some particular challenges. I don't believe there's a material recovery facility in your state that can add to some of the challenges. So excited to see you all receiving funding. I believe that Alaska's undertaking a solid waste management plan with this funding, which is also a great step. In terms of the EPA process, I know that this was a situation where they had to create a new grant program completely from scratch. So in working,
which is a good thing, but also a scary thing. Right?
It can be challenging.
Depending on which way they go with it.
And I'll tell you, we've worked closely with the office that has been building this program, and understand that they've been working, I think, as quickly as they can, but still hear frustrations from folks who want to get funding out more quickly. I will say for the next round of funding, we're hearing that could be potentially sometime in October, so we're anticipating having those opportunities again. I know that North Carolina looks to provide technical assistance to our communities to help as they're applying in this grant program and in other programs under the IIJA, and we will continue to do that. The other area that we are receiving technical assistance and that EPAs are providing across the country is for the CPRG grants. That'll be another potential area that we could take advantage of. That's a bigger pot of funding. And especially aiming towards any kind of climate emission reductions, including food waste. So I know that our state is planning to take advantage of that as well. So we do appreciate the technical assistance. I will say that we try to have patience with EPA since they were creating something brand new. It's always a challenge, and we'll continue to work with them if we see opportunities to streamline.
Good. Mr. Marshall?
Yeah, it is a challenge to manage these types of granting programs. We have about 150 active grants at the Recycling Partnership, and I myself have about 30 people working on them. So it's just really critical to resource them because there's a lot of questions. You have to pay invoices, But the positive thing about this, we reimburse a lot. So upon award, action starts happening. So I know money might not be flowing yet, but momentum is growing in these places that have been awarded, so there might be a positive way to look at this also, because they are excited that they received the award. They're looking for other money. They've contacted us for additional money to match the EPA dollars. So action is happening, even if money might not be flowing. And then I really appreciate you bringing up that critical needs to support these local governments to help write the grants. We supported a few communities that needed to write grants to apply for this money, and I think that would be a really critical step to really have a robust system to help urban areas and the rural areas can apply, because you're right, people that would apply to this are also the arborist or the sheriff at the local government. They don't have time to write grants.
Yeah, or they don't have the experience. Let me
That's right.
end with just a follow-up question, and I'm kind of running out of time here. So
No, you're not. You're not.
Ms. Fife-Ferris, I understand you were a consultant in Alaska a number of years ago, and so you know these challenges specifically with regard to rural communities, limited financial resources for communities that are trying to benefit from these kind of programs. And then maybe just a question for all of you. I know, Mr. Marshall, you've also testified about the importance of public-private partnerships. The feds, the state, the local governments can't, they can't do everything here. So how do we enhance that element of addressing this broader challenge? So maybe, Ms. Fife-Ferris, if we can start with you.
That's a tough question, to get the private industry.
But also
engaged.
your experience with
my
the
experience.
rural communities
Yeah.
and in Alaska in particular.
Yeah. So when I was working primarily in Juneau, and we were working on a landfill, and they had a waste-to-energy facility that the local government was looking at taking over. But I also consulted with up in Anchorage and Fairbanks. Yeah, you can't bury waste very easily when the ground's frozen. You don't have some place to take it. You don't have roadways to haul your material out of your city. You have to barge it. We looked at barging recyclables down to California. We looked at barging recyclables to Hawaii at one point. It's really, really difficult. And so you have to look at the community. And I think this is a great area where waste prevention and using durables, getting rid of single-use plastics, looking at what's right for the community that you're in, and not something that fits for Seattle isn't necessarily going to fit for one of your small rural communities, on the coastline. But there are ways to do it. And then the materials that are coming into your area should be recyclable and easily to capture. And then you can backhaul them, you can back barge them. And in other words, you're bringing up supplies up to the area, and then you backhaul them on that same barge or thing. So there are ways to work it out, but it's not an easy solution.
Yeah, and it's expensive.
And it's expensive. Producer responsibility. You make it, you manage it.
Yeah. Mr. Marshall, on the public-private partnership issue, I know you've testified on that before.
Yes, absolutely. And so I think sharing the stories of public-private partnerships is critical in this space. That's one way to do it. So the Recycling Partnership actually received a grant from EPA Region 4 to start 10 years ago. So that's really got our start, and now we're fully funded by the private sector to deliver funds. And this, I'd also highlight that those stories and connections are really happening at the local level with the Conference of Mayors. This has been a major subject for them every single year. And so I just think what you're highlighting is critical to really lean in and learn how to do it. We're trying to get in front of as many local governments as possible so they understand how to access these dollars.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to the witnesses. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet. I just want to acknowledge the good work that you and